Welcome back to the Path to Peace Therapy podcast. I'm Stephanie Buckley, parenting strategist, family systems coach, and an AMFT solution-focused therapist who lives at the intersection of ADHD, anxiety, and the beautiful, often chaotic machinery of family dynamics. In our last episode, From Meltdowns to Mastery, we explored the architectural blueprints of the home, the scaffolding and structure that keep executive function upright. But today, we are stepping into the ruins. We're talking about what happens when the scaffolding buckles and the storm takes over. Because the moment a child crosses the threshold into a meltdown, the laws of physics and psychology shift. You are no longer navigating a classroom. You are navigating a nervous system in a state of high alert emergency. We've all been there. The glass-shattering scream, the rigid limbs, the eyes that seem to look right through you. In those moments, parents often ask, why can't I get through? Why does my help feel like gasoline on a fire? Here is the hard truth of the brain. During a meltdown, the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, has officially left the building. The amygdala, that ancient pulsing threat detector, has staged a complete neurological coup. This isn't a child being difficult. This is a biological hijacking. Adrenaline and cortisol aren't just flowing, they are flooding the system, putting the body on a war footing. Blood flow is physically diverted away from the centers of logic and language, siphoning instead into the muscles for fight or flight. Working memory evaporates, leaving the child unable to remember the rules you set 5 minutes ago. The brain has stopped asking, how do I solve this problem? And has begun screaming a single primal question, am I safe? Traditional parenting wisdom tells us to redirect. We try to point toward a toy, a different room, or a logical consequence. But redirection is a high-level cognitive skill. It requires cognitive flexibility, a luxury the brain cannot afford when it's under siege. When you offer a choice or a distraction to a child in a neurological storm, their nervous system doesn't hear a solution. It hears demand. It hears noise. It hears one more piece of sensory input that it has no capacity to process. This is why don't we go play with Legos can sometimes lead to a thrown Lego. The brain must return to the shore of safety before it can navigate the waters of direction. If you want to bring your child's brain back online, you must first ensure yours isn't being pulled into the undertow. We start with phase 1, silent self-regulation. Before you speak, before you move, you become the anchor. You utilize the extended exhale. By inhaling for a count of 3 and exhaling for a slow, controlled 6, you are manually overriding your own stress response via the vagus nerve. The language of the body, bypassing the thinking brain. When a child is in the depths of a meltdown, words are nothing more than static. To reach them, we must abandon the language of logic and adopt the language of the body. We use sensory tools that act as a backdoor into the brain, bypassing the locked gates of the prefrontal cortex and speaking directly to the brainstem. These aren't just games or distractions. They are biological interventions designed to force the nervous system to shift gears from danger to safe. 1. The invisible candle, mastering the rhythm of release. The simplest tool is one you carry with you everywhere, the breath. But during a meltdown, a child cannot take a deep breath on command. Their chest is too tight, their panic too high. Instead, we use the invisible candle. How to use it? You hold up your index finger, mimicking a flickering flame. You don't ask them to breathe. You simply hold the space. You whisper, I have a candle, but the flame is very fragile. Can you help me blow it out? Very slowly. The science. To blow out a candle without splashing the wax, the child must unconsciously pucker their lips and lengthen their exhale. This action stimulates the vagus nerve, the body's internal reset button. As the exhale becomes longer than the inhale, the heart rate begins to drop, signaling to the amygdala that the predator has left the room and it is finally safe to stand down. 2. The bubble wand, visualizing the calm. Bubbles are a neurological powerhouse because they require 3 things the brain loses during a meltdown: focus, breath control, and visual tracking. How to use it. You don't hand the wand to the child, that's a demand. Instead, you simply start blowing bubbles into the air near them. The science. As the child watches the bubbles drift, their eyes begin to perform smooth pursuit tracking, a rhythmic movement that is naturally calming to the nervous system. To blow a bubble that doesn't pop instantly, they must regulate their airflow. It transforms a chaotic, gasping breath into a slow, intentional stream. You are effectively luring their nervous system back into a state of play, which is biologically incompatible with the fight-or-flight response. 3. The pinwheel, the feedback loop of peace. For a child who is visually driven or highly externalized, the pinwheel provides immediate, tactile proof of their power to change their own state. How to use it. Hold the pinwheel just within their line of sight. Encourage them to see how slow they can make it spin or how long they can keep it moving. The science. The pinwheel acts as a visual feedback loop. When a child is dysregulated, they feel out of control. When they see the pinwheel spin because of their breath, it provides a sense of agency. The rhythmic, repetitive motion of the blades creates a mesmerizing effect that helps ground the child in the present moment, pulling their focus away from the internal storm and anchoring it to the physical world. 4. The straw, the resistance of regulation. Straw breathing is perhaps the most stealth clinical tool in your kit. It utilizes pursed lip breathing to create back pressure in the lungs. How to use it. You can give them a straw to blow through either into the air or, more effectively, into a cup of water to create ocean bubbles. The science. Blowing through the narrow diameter of a straw provides physical resistance. This resistance forces the diaphragm to engage and prevents the chest breathing associated with panic. It's a proprioceptive job for the mouth and lungs. By narrowing the exit path for the air, you are mechanically forcing the body to slow down its respiratory rate. It is a physical impossibility to maintain a high arousal fight state while successfully blowing slow, steady bubbles through a straw. As you introduce these tools, remember, you are the biological mirror. If you are blowing bubbles with a tense face and a racing heart, the child will mirror your tension, not the tool. You aren't just blowing air. You are broadcasting a frequency of safety. Your softened shoulders, your unclenched jaw, and your steady, rhythmic presence act as the anchor. You are using your calm, regulated nervous system to tether theirs, holding them steady until the waves subside and the thinking brain can finally come back to the surface. The HALT lens. Once the breathing slows, the muscles soften, and the lights come back on in their eyes, we don't jump straight to, what did we learn? Instead, we look at the HALT markers to see what was stacking in the dark. Hungry. Was the brain running on low glucose fumes? A hungry brain is a brittle brain, incapable of the flexibility required to handle a no. Angry. Is this a leftover emotion? Did a perceived unfairness from 3 hours ago finally find its vent? Lonely. Did they lose the tether of connection during a busy transition? Is this behavior actually a desperate, distorted cry for proximity? Tired. Is the system simply depleted? When the battery is at 1%, the OS crashes. HALT reminds us that the meltdown wasn't the event. It was the result of a slow accumulation of stress that the child finally couldn't carry. We must remember, you cannot reason with a brain in survival mode. You cannot teach a drowning person how to swim. You must first pull them to the shore. Structure is what we use to prevent the storm. Regulation is the life raft we use to survive it. Both are essential, but they cannot happen at the same time. As you move into your week, remember that your greatest tool isn't your words, your consequences, or your charts. Your greatest tool is your own regulated presence. This episode is for educational purposes and to provide support. It's not a substitute for professional mental health evaluation, diagnosis, or treatment. The more we learn to recognize the signs behind the behaviors, the more compassion and support we can offer to our kids, our partners, and ourselves. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode was helpful, I'd love it if you shared it with a fellow parent, caregiver, or educator who might need it too. You can also subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes and check out additional tools and resources at thepathtopecetherapy.com. Follow me on Instagram at thepathtopecetherapy. If you are in California, I offer virtual sessions if you are not in the Hermosa Beach and South Bay area. You can book online at The Path to Peace Therapy or send me an email at stephanieb@thepathtopecetherapy.com.